Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Kendra Prabhu.
My obeisances, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for the photo of Sri Krishna Balaram and for the field trip yesterday.
Oh, the field trip was real great fun, wasn't it?
It was totally.
They went on too past 9 o'clock. I turned in, but it must have been going for another couple hours. Krishna, Krishna.
I'm all set up here, so I'll start a kirtan if that's all right with you.
Sounds great to me.
Okay. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Saminiti Namine Namaste Sarasate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirbhashesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Shayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Paripajikacharya Ashto Turasasri Shrimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Nama Charja Sridhar Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Shadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kun Radha Kunikiri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Tham Ki Jai Navadip Tham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamana Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol, Hari Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj. And thanks everyone for tuning in on a Friday, July 30th, to hear the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami, hosted by ISKCON of New Jersey. We're in the 9th chapter, and either Maharaj or Mahesh Pandit Prabhu will know exactly where we're at, either in the latter part of the purport to text 34, or if we've finished that and we're ready to
We're in
move on.
34.
Still in 34. Good. So 2:9:34. I'll post the verse in the chat box, and please, everybody, participate to your heart's content. And thank you again, Maharaj, for being with us.
Thank you, Kendra Prabhu. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yes, come in. You are welcome. Arjun Prabhu. Hare Krishna. We're here at the Bhakti Center with Vasudev Prabhu and his good wife and Arjun Prabhu. And thank you all for coming. Now, as far as our location, we're in the paragraph that begins, there's one Supreme Person, and Mahesh Pandit Prabhu, I think, is better at this than I am.
That's correct, yes, Maharaj.
And are we at the superior energy of the Lord cannot be as good as the Lord?
No, there is one Supreme Person who is progenitor.
Yeah, within that paragraph, or should we just start that paragraph again?
Yeah, start this paragraph here.
Okay, let's do that. Om Jnana Timirantasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurn Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakoda Mahyam Dadhati Shapadantikam Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Jatapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Sahagana Raganatan Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sahavadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Shahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagat Pite Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Krishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hori Priye Vansha Kolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Bhyevacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Pratertam Yat Pratiyeta Nat Pratiyeta Chatmani Tad Vidyat Atmano Mayam Yata Bhasha Yata Tamaha O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, if without relation to me, has no reality. Know it is my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. So Srila Prabhupada had quoted a verse from two verses from Ayurvedic Shastra, and he paraphrases them here. There's one supreme person who's the progenitor of the cosmic manifestation and whose energy acts as Prakriti, or the material nature, dazzling like a reflection. By such illusory action of Prakriti, even dead matter is caused to move by the cooperation of the living energy of the Lord, and the material world appears like a dramatic performance to the ignorant eyes. So the whole material energy is inert, it's darkness, but it's lit up a little bit by the presence of the living entity. And so it all appears very, very, alive. New Orleans is alive, Paris is alive, full of life, razzle dazzle. But it's just dead matter that's moving because there's some living entity stuck inside it who are moving it along. And so this drama, all these dramas are going on, but the ignorant person may even be a scientist or physiologist. Let's see. In the drama of Prakriti, well, the sane person knows Prakriti as the illusory energy of the Lord. So the materialistic great minds are all absorbed in the darkness of Prakriti and looking at how the darkness, sorting their way through the darkness. It looks a little darker over here. And well, this is the kind of darkness we haven't seen before. And look at that darkness. And well, that's maybe 50 shades of gray over here. But anyway, they're looking in the darkness. But the person who's enlightened sees that Krishna's energies are working. Apareya stranyam prakatim vidime para jiva bhuta mahabaho yuyedam. What is that? Akilam jagat. Yeah, right. Jiva bhuta mahabaho. Taryate jagat. So this is all going on. By such a conclusion, that everything's the illusory energy of the Lord here, it's clear that the living entities are also a display of the Lord's superior energy, para prakriti, just as the material world is a display of the Lord's inferior energy, apara prakriti. Now, I believe it's Jiva Goswami who analyzes the verse this way, that we have yata bhasha yata tamaha. So the tama is the inferior energy, and the abhasha is the living entity. Little bit of light from the marginal living entity, a lot of darkness from Prakriti, but neither one of them is an independent, powerful truth. Neither one of them is the real light. The superior energy of the Lord cannot be as good as the Lord, although there's very little difference between the energy and the possessor of the energy, or the heat and the fire. Fire is possessed of heat, but heat is not fire. But heat is not fire. This simple thing is not understood by the man with a poor fund of knowledge who falsely claims that fire and heat are the same. That's the Mayavadis. This energy of the fire, namely heat, is explained here as a reflection and not directly the fire. Therefore, the living energy represented by the living entities is the reflection of the Lord and never the Lord himself. Being the reflection of the Lord, the existence of the living entity is dependent on the Supreme Lord, who is the original light. this material energy may be compared to darkness, as actually it is darkness. And the activities of the living entities in the darkness are reflections of the original light. So that there's that analysis we were talking about. Yata, asa, yata, tamaha. So the abhas is the living entity, and the tamaha is the material nature. At least that's one analysis. The Lord should be understood by the context of this verse. Non-dependence of both of the energies of the Lord is explained as Maya, or illusion. If we think that the material nature doesn't depend on the Lord, that's Maya. And if we think that we don't depend on the Lord, that's all Maya also. The scientific theories that nature is independently working are illusion. And the idea that we can do whatever we like is also illusion. We're dependent truths, contingent truths. No one can make a solution of the darkness of ignorance simply by the reflection of light. Similarly, no one can come out of material existence simply by the reflected light of the common man. One has to receive light from the original light itself. The reflection of sunlight in the darkness is unable to drive out the darkness, but the sunlight outside the reflection can drive out the darkness completely. So here's yet another analysis that the speculations of the materialists are like a little reflection of light. The knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, the words of the Lord are the actual light. Then we get these little, brilliant books by brilliant philosophers, but their brilliance is just a little reflection. One is reminded of the hellish, of the lower planets where everything's in darkness, but there's some light reflected from the jewels of the Nagas, jewels on the hoods of the Nagas. So that's Times Square, or that's the material world, a little reflected light. Times Square is really good for, if you want to mess around with analogies, you've got this, brilliant light broadcasting everywhere, but what is really broadcasting darkness? The analogy works better for those who.
Sorry, Maharaj, you got muted accidentally.
I think it was on purpose, but we won't try and track down who did it. Okay. In darkness, no one can see the things in a room. Therefore, a person in the dark is afraid of snakes and scorpions, although there may not be such things. But in the light, the things in the room can be clearly seen, and the fear of snakes and scorpions is at once removed. Therefore, one has to take shelter of the light of the Lord, as in the Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, and not the reflective personalities who have no touch with the Lord. No one should hear Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam from a person who does not believe in the existence of the Lord. Such a person is already doomed. And any association with such a doomed person makes the associator also doomed. So again, we should get, what is that? Nashta kalo nashta dashami shapuran arko denoritam. Srimad Bhagavatam is Krishna, so it's giving light. Krishna Surya Sama Maya Hoy Andhakar. And all of these, they're compared in the in the 10th canto, the glowworms, the great scientists, the great speculators are compared to I guess a glowworm is a firefly, right? They're compared to fireflies, to glowworms. How much you can't really see your way around for that little flashing light of the glowworm. So one should hear Bhagavatam from a devotee of Krishna and get actual light. Any questions, comments so far?
I like your reference to Paris and New Orleans and Times Square. The nightlife creates the illusion of real life. And
Yeah.
and then Prabhupada's sentence that no one can come out of material existence simply by the reflected light of the common man. It reminds me how much I used to enjoy sitting in movie theaters and just getting completely lost in the play of light on the screen. But you can't live in a movie theater. It's just a flickering light that is meant to dazzle you, and you get sucked in. But the ushers will kick you out at a certain point.
Yeah, and you certainly can't live on the screen. All those, yata bhasi yata tama, all that drama reflected in the dark movie house. So you've got the darkness, and then you've got the movie, which is also darkness, really. It's reflected light. Nothing's really happening there. No one's getting shot. No one's embracing anyone. No one's coming out a hero. It's just the illusion that these things are happening. And in the darkness, it's especially impressive. Yeah, good. Movies, films. Anything else? Rabin has a verse for me. Nisha mukeshu kadyotas tamasa panti nigraha yatapa pena vashanda nahi veda kalo yuge. In the evening twilight during the rainy season, the darkness allowed the glowworms, but not the stars, to shine forth. Just as in the age of Kali, the predominance of sinful activities allows atheistic doctrines to overshadow true knowledge of the Vedas. Yeah, the world is in darkness because we're looking for darkness, or because we turn away from Krishna. Turn away from Krishna means at once we're in Maya. Prabhupada gave that example I've cited many times, that you put your hand like that and your palm is in the light, and you turn it like that, it's in the darkness. So as soon as we turn away from Krishna, there's darkness. Yata bhasa yata, and a little reflected light somewhere, it's not going to make much difference.
I'm also thinking of the 10th chapter of the Gita Maharaj, Krishna lists all these opulences of the material world, and Attava Bhavanatana Kimgyatin, that's just what's the use of all this reflections.
All the vibhuti manifestations are in the material world, where everything is darkness, and even whatever is great and wonderful and splendid is just a little part of Krishna's energy. Langshena. Nice. Something else? According to the Padma Purana, within the material compass, there are innumerable material universes, and all of them are full of darkness. Any living being, beginning from the Brahmas, there are innumerable Brahmas in innumerable universes, to the insignificant ant, are all born in darkness, and they require factual light from the Lord to see him directly, just as the sun can be seen only by the direct light of the sun. No lamp or man-made torchlight, however powerful it may be, can help one see the sun. The sun reveals itself. That's another feature. That what will we see by our tiny speculative powers? But when Krishna reveals himself, then it can be seen. The sun reveals itself. Therefore, the action of different energies of the Lord, or the personality of Godhead, can be realized by the light manifested by the causeless mercy of the Lord. The Jiva Goswami also mentions how the Lord is covered from our vision by Maya, but also revealed by Yoga Maya. So the Lord was hidden from the view of Brahma, then the Lord revealed himself to Brahma. So both things are possible. So the Lord, impersonalists say God cannot be seen. God can be seen by the light of God and not by man-made speculations. Go on speculating, what is that, for thousands and thousands of years. And God will not be understood. Vedeshu durlabham adurlabham atma bhakta. By devotional service, he can be understood. Bhaktya mama vijanati. Should we open this door, I think? I hope you'll all enjoy the fresh air there. Oh, marvelous. Good, good. So here, this light is specifically mentioned as vidyat, which is an order by the Lord to Brahma. This direct order of the Lord, yeah, vidyat, you should know, right? That's, well, I'll get out of sequence if I try to look at it here, I think. Let's see, do I have, yes, I can. You must know. Tam vidyat. So it's not just you can, but Srila Prabhupada's taking it that you must know. And Prabhupada says this is an order by the Lord. Know it. You know, we read that in Bhagavad Gita. Know that Almighty and so on. So generally, it's taken as stating information. But here, Prabhupada says it's an order. No, you should know. This direct order of the Lord is a manifestation of his internal energy. And this particular energy is the means of seeing the Lord face to face. Not only Brahma, but anyone who may be graced by the Lord to see such merciful, direct internal energy can also realize the personality of Godhead without any mental speculation. So the verse, in one sense, is fairly simple, but there's so much that can be said about it. Pratertam yat pratiyeta. Then what? Yat pratiyeta chatmani. Tam vidyad atmano mayam. That's the yoga maya, atma maya. Yatha pasha yatha. Yeah. Are there further comments? Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for my obeisances. I was just thinking in this explanation of the light and the darkness, and your giving the example that Prabhupada does of, your palm is facing the sun and you turn it over, it's not facing the sun. And I've thought about a similar idea in relation to, let's say you're in a room and you have a light switch, and when the light switch is on, there's light, and when the light switch is down, there's darkness. And I'm thinking in relation to our turning away from Krishna, that darkness is absolute and total. So if you turn your palm away, there's no question of the palm having any awareness or remembrance or knowledge of the sun. It's just absolute total darkness. Same with the light switch. If you're in a completely blackened room and you turn off the light switch and you're moved away from it, there's no question of finding the light switch again under your own power. You require light to find it. And that light has to come from someone who has light. So I think of that in terms of, when people say, well, how did we turn away from Krishna? Prabhupada so many times has made the statement, it's like, we don't know. It's time immemorial. So literally when you say immemorial, it means you can't remember, which means there's no light. There's no light of remembrance. Your darkness is absolute. And I think sometimes we think that because we have light now, that there was, that, I guess what I'm trying to say is the act of our will in turning away from Krishna means that the darkness is completely total and absolute. And we cannot get ourselves out of a situation that we got ourselves into. Once you turn your hand away, turn your palm away from the sun, because there's no awareness of the sun anymore, you cannot turn it back up. You require the mercy of the spiritual master, of a devotee, to turn your palm back to the sun. In the same way you require somebody who has light to help turn the light switch on for you. So I was just wondering if that's a correct understanding. I guess what I'm trying to say is that when we turn away, when we're in darkness, it's absolute and total, and there's no way that we can, try to trace out how we came to be in darkness. Would you say that's a fair understanding?
Even Brahma couldn't find the source of his lotus flower.
Right.
He was a multi-year project, but he couldn't do it. So finally, however, then Krishna showed Brahma. But to speak of you, there were all these Brahmas with lots more heads, and they can't figure out what I'm doing either. So that's there. I know I didn't fully answer your question. But...
No, I'm just trying to make sense of, my own thinking about it, and maybe getting confirmation or a correction from you. I just feel like, when people try to figure out our, our origins, there's missing this idea that we're so much in darkness that whatever we were, whatever there was before the darkness, we can't possibly know it.
Yeah, that argument is given by Srila Prabhupada in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita.
Okay, I'll look for that.
What is that? Chatvaro Manavastata. Those who existed before you, we can't know about. My great grandfather, totally in the dark. I couldn't even tell you his name. So what kind of research am I going to do? What am I going to find out? But if I get knowledge by parampara, this was your great grandfather, he did this, he did that, then it's possible, but not by speculative enterprise.
And I guess also what I neglected to say is that when you are in that total darkness, for all practical purposes, that means for all practical purposes, you were always in darkness, because there's no recollection or memory of light.
Yeah, that verse is relevant. Vadinam vai samvadam vivadam. The first Prabhin will undoubtedly have it for us within moments. It's a 4th canto verse. I offer my obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by whose illusory energy the great philosophers are disputing among themselves, sometimes agreeing, sometimes disagreeing, but always losing sight of their own selves.
Mm.
I offer my obeisances to him. And that's what happens. We have to answer this question. It's very important. It's essential. And then we argue over it. Scissors, knife, and we find ourselves in darkness, arguing over these things. First, we're in the darkness because we really don't know the answer, and then we're in further darkness because we think we do, and we're ready to die for it. And better to die than to admit defeat on Facebook. Isn't there a verse in Bhagavad Gita like that? Better to die than to admit defeat on Facebook. Anyway, yeah, here it is. Yat Shaktio, by whose Shakti? Yat Shaktio Vadatam, the Yat Shaktio Vadatam Badinam, by Vivada, Samvada. Vivada means disagreement, Samvada means agreement. Vivada, Samvada Bhavo Bhavanti. So they sometimes agree with one another, they sometimes disagree with one another. Kurvanti cha esham atmamoha, but they're always in bewilderment about the atma, about who they are, arguing and arguing and arguing. But with all these great arguments, they're in darkness. You have these men in darkness arguing over something and sometimes agreeing, yes, and sometimes disagreeing. Tasmai namo nanta gunaya pumne. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Lord who has unlimited qualities.
One more thing.
Hmm.
I also feel like this, well, I'm sure you are more conversant with where this might be validated, but the idea that we have turned away is not a once and for all thing. It seems to be, if not a moment to moment choice, but it happens regularly. And for myself anyways, I feel like that turning away, it may be momentary, and I may be in a dark mood with regard to my spiritual life. I may revert to my inner atheism. And it seems that, by keeping oneself in association, that light is always available, so that the darkness is never again completely, complete and total and absolute.
Yeah, Bodhiyanta Paraspara. The devotees enlighten one another.
Yeah.
That's our Krishna Consciousness Movement, Mutual Enlightenment Society. Yeah. But on our own, we won't get that same, it will be more difficult to get that kind of progress. Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank
Hi.
you. There's two new messages down here. Now let's see what they are. Latina says, well, first of all, let's see. Two messages. Okay, Tina. How can we understand that we're in total darkness if we've received some mercy to take on devotional service? And if one is not completely perfected, his or her life, but picks up where he, she, or it left off on in prior life, then that too is not total darkness. Yeah, not total darkness. We have a little bit of light, but not much. Not much. And especially because we don't want it. Where there is some light, total darkness may be overstating the case. Some light is there, but we're averse. It would be so easy. We just chant Hare Krishna and read Bhagavatam and serve Krishna. But no, we have other agendas, other desires. Even in principle, we don't like the idea of surrender. So many ways we're short of the mark. But by the mercy of Krishna and spiritual master, we make progress. And if we've received some mercy, then that's the passport to light. Take advantage of that mercy. Is that all right? Okay, there's another message. Deep. Being in darkness means not knowing who you are and your relationship with the Supreme, ? I always wondered how to include that evil, how to include that evil is also part of Krishna. But evil is back of Krishna, part of darkness. Yes. The darkness is also part of Krishna's arrangement, just as, what is that? Interesting. There went that thought in mid-sentence. Being in darkness means not knowing who you are in relationship with the Supreme. How to include, yes, so it's part of Krishna. It's the shadow of Krishna. The shadow is also part of the sun. Not directly, but indirectly. What is that? Anvayada Chartation. The light, the sunlight, or even the light that we see from the planets and so on, they're reflective light. They're reflected from the sun and ultimately from Krishna. Okay, what else?
Maharaj, one thing I was thinking is that when Prabhupada says no one should hear Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam from a person who does not believe in the existence of the Lord. And I think, as with many things, there's a spectrum of belief and the theoretical, totally theoretical, heading towards totally realized. And it also reminds me of that when you were speaking about how Krishna is giving Brahma the order, Vidyat, you must know this. It's very similar to a conversation Prabhupada had with some newly initiated sannyasis, when he was in which he's asking them, are you convinced? You must be convinced or you cannot preach. And I was thinking how any of our presentation of Krishna consciousness is effective to the degree that we actually believe it.
Yeah, very, very important point to pick out. Prabhupada asked that question many times, not only of sannyasis, but of others also. Are you convinced? And he would look at you like, penetrating look, are you convinced? And you had to ask yourself, am I convinced? Am I really convinced, or am I just sort of going along with this thing for convenience? Or what do they call that? Sunk capital. Is it sort of a sunk capital?
Sunk cost fallacy.
Excuse me?
The sunk cost fallacy, because I've invested so much, I guess I'll just go along with it, keep going with it because, I've put so much into it already.
Exactly. Is that really what I am? Well, I've, invested so much of myself in Krishna consciousness, so I can't admit that I don't really believe it. Or do we really believe it? That seemed to be Prabhupada's question. Are you really convinced, or are you just sort of here for the food? And so see, what to do if we're not really convinced? Well, associate with those who are really convinced and avoid the association of those who are atheistic and, outside the world of Krishna consciousness. That, yeah. I want to go back to that point that was made. Okay. Prabhin says, quotes Prabhupada, so if you've got any doubt about it, then you cannot do it. If you have got any doubt that whether Krishna is positive God or not, then you cannot do it. So far I am concerned, I have got opinion, convinced, and therefore I am pushing on it as a fact. I am pushing on because I'm pushing on fact, not fiction. That much I am personally convinced. Whenever there's somebody says, you believe, no, I don't believe. It is a fact. So that those who are looking for how is Prabhupada successful, he's fully convinced. And that's the sign of the Uttamadikari. The Kanishthadikari has Kamala Shraddha, soft, pliable faith. He goes out preaching and he meets a Christian, and the Christian says, what about Jesus? You're just worshiping a pagan God. Jesus is the one true Lord. You can't turn your back on Jesus. God gave his only begotten Son that we may have eternal life. And then so the new bhakta goes away thinking, how can I turn my back on Jesus? And God gave his only begotten Son. How could I be so ungrateful as to be worshiping a pagan God? But Krishna is. But on the other hand, I don't know. So he's got this Kamala Shraddha. It's weak. It's weak. Something like Jello in my mind. Pictures there. Wobbly. But then the second class devotee, he's more versed in the philosophy. He can offer good arguments back. He's stronger. And the first class devotee has unshakable faith in Krishna.
Interesting, Mark, that we come to this point of fact. This, in the introductory verse in chapter 3, it says, Yan Vigyan. So this verse, according to the church, is a Vigyan, which is they call it Anubhav or experience.
Mm-hmm. Say that again, and maybe a little louder.
In the introductory verse, in chapter 3, which is Jnanam Karma Kuyame Yad Vigyanam Samam. So he said all the topics which he's going to discuss. So they say, the Acharya said this verse is about Vigyan. So interesting, we come to that point of fact. Only by when Maya is removed, then things become real.
Factual. Yeah, what is that? And the Bhagavad Gita, when one is enlightened by the knowledge by which ignorance is removed, his knowledge lights up everything the way his sun lights up everything in the day. And again, the sun doesn't light up everything in the daytime whenever we want it. It comes in its own way. So we have to depend on Krishna. Tesham ivanukam partam maham jam tamaha. Nashyami atman pavasto gyanadi pena pasvatam. Praveen quotes for us this verse. Out of mercy, Nashyami Abhavastu. I sitting within their hearts, extinguish the darkness of the Jnana Deepena. Ashvata. By the light of knowledge. Something else? Oh dear. Well, I'm reluctant to jump on in the last 8 minutes to the next verse. In the next verse, we will be hearing about Prayojana, or the love of Krishna, Krishna Prema. Indirectly, we won't notice at first that that's what we're talking about. But with the guidance of the Acharyas, we can understand that's the actual subject of the next verse. First 2 verses can be said to describe Sambandha Gyan. Then the middle 2 verses can be understood to elucidate. Next 2 verses, I said the next verse. Krishna Prema. The Prayojana. And then the next verse, the last verse, has to do with practice. Abhidaya. Excuse me. Tulsi Priya has darkness is the absence of light. Panchatattva said, yes, definitely. Tulsi Priya has a commentario, a comment.
Maharaj, I was just remembering once that you were, I don't remember the context, it was some seminar you were giving where somebody was making a complaint and saying that they had given the best years of their life to ISKCON and they were discouraged for some reason. And you said, well, since you've given your best years of your life, you might as well give the rest of your life. So that's a positive effect of the sunk cost principle.
Yeah. Somehow, if you've sunk your cost in the right thing, well, good. Now you're stuck with it. But yes. But it's interesting that our faith in Krishna shouldn't be coming just from a sort of cost-benefit analysis. Well, it's better for me to believe in Krishna because then people will be my friend. People will allow me to have this position. People will give me money or whatever it is. We need to be introspective. Why do Prabhupada? Do you believe that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? If so, what are your reasons? I believe these were 2 questions on the original Bhakti Shastri exam. Original Bhakti Shastri exam, by the way, was like 1 page long, something like that, 8 or 10 questions. And that was one of them. Do you believe that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? If so, please give your reasons.
Since we're discussing that point of belief in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and you did mention how that sort of conviction can be had by associating with those who've already got that belief, I was just wondering, maybe should you choose to speak on it, what's the mechanism for that belief taking place? Does Krishna just give it to you in your heart? Is it something that you can't? It seems like you can't just access it yourself or imagine yourself to have it, or how does that actually work?
Could you do that for me one more time?
Yeah, when we speak of having conviction that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you spoke of how that sort of conviction is gained by associating from those who have the conviction.
Mm-hmm.
Is it just that we see the conviction in others and then somehow it dawns on us, or is that like a switch that Krishna alone can switch either yay or nay,
Well,
and just
yeah, I'm sorry.
and have the process of believing take place that way?
Well, it's not just that we hear from them, we're inspired by their conviction, but there's a potency. When the devotees talk about Krishna, there's potency in that. It's not just that we see their example of faith, but the Krishna appears in the sound when this what is that? Satam prasanga mama virya samvito. One is affected by the potency. Bhavanti hrit karna rasayana kadat. So the topics become very pleasing to the ear, very pleasing to the hrit karna, to the ear, to the heart. They become very, they give life and they're relishable. So that's what happened to Narad Muni. He was just a servant boy, but the sages would be hearing, so he'd be hearing. The whole atmosphere became attractive for him. Then he took a little of their Mahaprasadam and woo. So it wasn't only seeing their inspired example, but there was something, I hate the word magical, but something magical in the association of devotees.
Yeah, so you could maybe even equate Shraddha with the juice that you get from the experience itself. It's not just a cognitive thing. Like last night when you walked us downstairs to the kirtan, that was like a big boost of Krishna conscious experience that a lot of us hadn't had in a while. So that was like an example of what you're talking about right there. It's like, whoa, there's something happening here, and it's very attractive.
We heard that word earlier. Anubhav means experience, directly experienced ecstasy, directly experienced transcendental realization. It springs at once from the transcendental platform, surpassing the lower stratum of mind, intelligence, and ego. So yes, it's Jnanam and Vijnanam, knowledge, theoretical knowledge, but sub-Vijnanam with realization. Anything else? Arjun, thank you so much. Hari, Hari. I'm not scheduled to give classes tomorrow morning. Very well. All right, I think we can end here. You want to chant for a couple of minutes and we can end that way? So with some realization.
Do you have a live band there?
No, I don't.
Oh.
My band here is kind of dead.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Serious sound vibration. But we have 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. Anyone could come forward and brighten the atmosphere with chanting.
Sure. Hare Krishna. All right, just a moment.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you all, and good night.
Thank you, Maharaj. Good night.
We'll see you on
Monday.
Inshallah.
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 Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj ki jai. Hare Krishna.